Well, for more on how China's fashion industry is being influenced by e-commerce and other factors, I'm joined by Tommy Lei. He's the founder of MyBelonging, an international fashion blog focused on menswear. Welcome, Tommy.
Thank you so much for having me.
So what do you think about this trend that we're seeing of some designers going off the runway and hosting these more personalized events to showcase their brands?
Well, I certainly think there has been an oversaturation of what you can see on social media. Like all the runway shows being displayed immediately on Instagram. I think sometimes these brands may lose that personal touch with their audience, and they're trying to kind of rein that in a little bit more and really having it closer to home to their core audiences. And I think that's an important thing to do to stay relevant. Sometimes it's important to sort of shift things a little bit and maybe buck against the trends of social media.
Now, we've certainly seen social media play a big role, but then you also see a lot of companies connecting with influencers. Is that another really good way to get brand recognition?
Well, certainly, as someone who is an influencer himself, I may be a bit biased when it comes to this, but I think it's important to sort of have brands penetrate deeper into, different niches and different audiences. And, us as influencers, we do have that power to speak very intimately to our audiences. So, as someone who represents a more agendered and unisexual look, I think, that would appeal to, brands who are looking to get into a market that they have not otherwise touched before.
And how would you say Chinese brands are faring in terms of their competition with foreign brands to really boost popularity in China?
I'd certainly say that Chinese brands are formidable competitors in this space, especially after seeing what happened at Tmall's China Day. I was certainly very impressed with, a lot of homegrown talent there, like Li Ning, like that athlete, like all the athleisure that I saw that came through was very well executed and well styled and would be incredibly resonative for an American audience. And I just sort of love that crossover appeal. And I really think it's a strong presence that is heading our way, to be honest.
And what's on your radar in terms of the trends that you think are really going to be resonating with shoppers in this coming year?
Gosh, I think it's all about the puffer jacket. I saw so many variations of it on the runway, especially at both Peace Bird and Feng Chen Wang, another Chinese designer that showed this season. And I mean, the puffer jackets are so well done and so avant-garde. And I think, if anyone who's into high fashion, they're going to immediately find themselves arrested by the design and the aesthetic of those puffer jackets. So I think that's a big trend that's coming.
Now, what about misperceptions that people have about Chinese designers? Because they do want to expand on the global stage, but sometimes people perhaps aren't familiar with the aesthetic. What do you think they should really understand?
For Chinese designers in particular, they really need to understand that they have to work with people who are native to the United States. I think it's important for them to sort of branch out a little bit more and to approach, perhaps influencers and tastemakers who are born, in China, have perhaps immigrated to the United States and still speak their native tongues like I do. I think it's important to sort of branch that conversation a little bit and broaden their audiences by really reaching out to people who support a very high-end, elevated aesthetic, as well as, people who are designing like streetwear, athleisure garments. I think you have a very big spectrum of that in America. And so, they just need to really break down the barriers a bit and perhaps move away from just working with Chinese celebrities and influencers, on their side of the continent.
Now, at one point, when e-commerce was first emerging, we saw that people were saying, is this the end of the brick and mortar store? But now you're having this new retail model that kind of blends both of them. What do you think of this blending of this new retail model?
It's a fantastic evolution. I, for one, still love going into Barney's and, finding something very special. I love that whole shopping experience. I think that's part of what makes luxury so special is that, you have a lot of personable attention. And I think, what we're evolving to is maybe perhaps retail is becoming more of a showroom space, a showroom space in that, people can see the garment and try it on, and perhaps just putting down the order, and not just contributing to, massive inventory that could otherwise be quite wasteful, in the environmental scheme of things.